Fellow citizens, I'm David Abdulah, political leader of the Movement for Social Justice, the MSJ. We state boldly today that the MSJ is a serious political party. We can confidently make such a statement, even though we are not contesting the April 28th election. Because of our philosophy, we believe in social justice and our understanding of politics. For us, elections is one part of politics. That is why we contested on our own, and we're saying this because some may forget, local government elections in 2013, 16, 19, and 23, and general elections in 2020, albeit fielding candidates in numbers that we could realistically support. However, politics is much more than elections. We paraphrase one definition of politics, a definition that has guided our work as a party to make this point. Politics is the collective activity of ordering and regulating the economic and general life of society to serve the material and other needs of the people. But the people are split up into classes which have and pursue particular, different, and in fact conflicting economic interests. Politics therefore necessarily involves the struggle of classes in pursuit of their respective interests. Politics also necessarily involves a struggle for capturing the power of the state, bringing about change, reactionary or progressive, reformist or even revolutionary. The use that is made of state power differs depending on the class outlook of those who wield it. In the main, the state power protects and serves the interests of the class or classes that own and control the economic wealth of the society. End of quote. We believe in social justice, which actually is embedded in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago in the preamble, and it says, "We respect the principles of social justice," and I'm quoting, "and therefore believe that the operation of the economic system should result in the material resources of the community being so distributed as to subserve the common good, that there should be an adequate means of livelihood for all, that labor should not be exploited or forced by economic necessity to operate in inhumane conditions, and that there should be opportunity for advancement on the basis of recognition of merit, ability, and integrity." End of quote. In the more than 62 years since becoming an independent nation and the almost 50 years of being a republic, true social justice has not been achieved. This is because the old colonial state has remained fundamentally intact. It has, in the main, served and protected the interests of the elite, the class or classes that own and control the economic wealth of society. That this has been our continued reality is due to the outlook of those who have wielded state power, and the elites who finance the parties make sure that when their party is in office, they keep that status quo intact. For Trinidad and Tobago to truly achieve social justice, two things must happen. Firstly, we need to have people in the government, that is, those who wield state power, who will use that state power in the interest, first and foremost, of the majority of citizens. That means state power must be used to benefit the working people and not the elite class that owns and controls the nation's wealth. It is our respectful view that this requires the MSJ to be in government. This is why we in the MSJ are committed to challenge for and win government as a means to an end, to be able to use government office in the interest of the working people and poor. We are not now in the position to make that challenge, and that is why on January 14th, we made the public statement that the MSJ would not be contesting these elections. When we do contest, we will do so to make the fundamental changes in the relations of economic, social, and political power that are necessary so that there can be a better life for all citizens. This takes us to the second thing that must happen if we are to achieve true social justice. The institutions of state must be transformed. Today, all of our institutions of state have been failing the citizens: the parliament, the judiciary, the executive, what we call cabinet and government. As a result, so many things are falling down. Accountability and transparency is absent in the government. Corruption is rampant. The criminal justice system is a hot mess. The culture of violence has become entrenched. The education system favors the elites. Our infrastructure is in bad shape. And most importantly, decisions get made that affect us all, but which none of us has any input in making. All this must be changed. There should be nothing about us without us being involved. A system that excludes people from participating in major decisions that affect their lives cannot be said to be a just system. Furthermore, the economic system is operating not for the common good, but for the good of the elites, the multinational corporations, the large local conglomerates, the banks, other large firms, and the managerial and professional class that run them and who live very well as a result. This too has to change if we are to build a nation on the principles of social justice. This is why the MSJ has stated that the system of power created by the 1976 Republican Constitution, what we describe as the First Republic, has collapsed. This system isn't serving the needs of the people. What is needed is fundamental change in our Constitution, in economic policies, and so much more. Trinidad and Tobago must evolve from the First Republic to the Second Republic. We are totally committed to make that a reality. That is what we truly believe Trinidad and Tobago needs. But for this to happen, we need a revolution of the mind. One sign that a revolution of the mind is taking place will be that more and more people reject the idea that there can only be two parties in Trinidad, red and yellow. Another sign will be the recognition that fundamental change will not be implemented by those parties that historically have protected and served the status quo, the elites. You see, the function of a political party is not only to contest elections. Our parties have either forgotten or ignored the wise advice of the country's first prime minister when he said in his message to the nation on Independence Day, and I'm quoting Dr. Williams in 1962, democracy finally rests on a higher power than Parliament. It rests on an informed and cultivated and alert public opinion. The members of Parliament are only representatives of the citizens. They cannot represent apathy and indifference. They can play the part allotted to them only if they represent intelligence and public spiritedness. The development and expansion of that interest is the joint responsibility of the government, the Parliament, the political parties, and relevant civic organizations. End of quote. Yes, it's important for a political party to be in Parliament, but it is equally important for a political party to actively contribute to the development of an informed and cultivated and alert public opinion. The MSJ has a proud and unchallenged record in fulfilling this responsibility and therefore in strengthening our democracy. Our many public statements on key issues, our informative Tuesday talk with the MSJ sessions are active contributions to this. It is against this background of our understanding of politics and our belief in the principles of social justice that we make this statement today on the 2025 general elections. Our analysis and our conclusions are not based on emotions or race or religion or geography. We are not going to engage in personality attacks or the demonization of any leader. This is a statement about the reality of Trinidad and Tobago and is based on the use to which state power has been put. It is about the state of the nation and, even more importantly, the state of the lives of the majority of our citizens. The fact of the matter is that in the last 10 years, the lives of the majority of citizens has gotten a whole lot worse. We are talking about the working class, whose ranks range from security guards, store workers, workers in the fast food and restaurant sector and casinos, to workers in the public utilities, construction, manufacturing and energy sectors, and includes workers in the financial sector, as well as teachers, public servants, postal workers, workers who are medical professionals or nurses, bus and maintenance workers, daily paid workers, and those in the services, police, fire, prisons. Of course, those who are unemployed suffer tremendously as they try to survive by a hustle here and there. Those involved in the scrap iron industry, and especially the van drivers and collectors, suffered when the industry was shut down for months. Our farmers and fisher folk, business people in the small, micro, and medium-sized sector, the self-employed, whether taxi and maxi drivers or those who are vendors, also have been experiencing great hardships. And of course, there are thousands of young people who are qualified, but either cannot get a job in their field or are unemployed, while many others are on short-term contracts that provide no security. And there are the many creatives who are dealing with all the challenges of the gig economy. Then there are our senior citizens who are unable to keep up with the ever-rising cost of living, especially food and medical care, on their small pensions that have seen no increase. On the other hand, We see the large conglomerates and the banks increasing their profits year after year. And I will just give you the figures for 2024. Republic Bank, profit $2 billion. First Citizens, profit $957 million. Scotiabank, profit $658 million. Royal Bank, $1.16 billion, profit. Agostini, $323 million, profit. Prestige Holdings, $66.5 million, profit. Massey Holdings, $712 million in profit. Answer Macal Group, $675 million in profit. Angostura, $144 million in profit. The total profits for these 9 companies in 2024 total a massive $6.629 billion. So there is money in the country. The issue is who is getting it? How is the nation's wealth distributed? Now let's turn to the multinational corporations in the energy sector. Some of these names you're not familiar with. BP, Shell, EOG, Repsol, Proman, Perenco, Methanex, Nutrien, Yara, Farmland, Point Lisas Nitrogen, to name some of the largest. They reap rich dividends from exploiting our natural gas. Half of this country's economic pie is in the energy sector. So these are the companies that are owners and controllers of half of our economic wealth. When you add the multinationals to the 9 large firms and conglomerates that we mentioned before, you begin to get the real picture of who has power in Trinidad and Tobago. And we need to point out that some of the local conglomerates control the major international retail brands. Prestige Holdings controls Starbucks, KFC, Pizza Hut, TGIF. Agostini is the dominant player in the pharmaceutical sector, and a few companies control many media houses. So what we have is a concentration of power and wealth. The retail sector continues to be dominated by foreign firms such as PriceSmart and Unicoma or Courts, and a local business class that has privileged access to scarce foreign exchange. They essentially use Forex to buy cheap and sell there. In the process, they crowd out investment opportunities for small local businesses and sustainable local producers, as well as access to Forex for individuals. Citizens continue to express frustration with the high cost of financial services through all kinds of bank charges. Small businesses have trouble accessing loans on reasonable terms, while the financial sector continues to be hugely profitable. And of course, we have a few very large contractors who get the bulk of the contracts to do things like road paving. The national economic pie is being shared more and more unequally. A few getting a bigger and bigger slice, while the many are forced to make do with less and less. The inequality is getting worse. As the rich get richer, the working people struggle, and the poor catch their tails. Some CEOs get a salary of $80,000 a month, and that doesn't include free car, phone, entertainment allowance, and other perks. On the other hand, a minimum worker gets $3,500 a month. Do the maths. It will take a minimum worker more than 2 years to earn what that CEO gets in 1 month. That is the type of inequality in TNT today. As the Mighty Sparrow sang years ago, it's capitalism gone mad. All of this is a result of the way in which the economic and political system is organized. It benefits the elite class and discriminates against the working people. But in the last 10 years, there has been the systematic implementation of what we call neoliberal policies. State power was wielded to implement these policies. This was deliberate. Dr. Rowley made it abundantly clear that he believes in neoliberalism when he stated in an interview on national television after the 2020 general elections, and I'm quoting him now, "I'm not trying to interfere with the bridge between the rich and poor. There's nothing wrong with the rich getting richer. It's not a seesaw where one must go down for the other to go up. We need to encourage ways for the rich to get richer, and in getting richer, they create opportunities for the poor. It's all about opportunities." End of quote by Dr. Rowley. But just look what has taken place. Workers have been losing jobs in GRAP. In the state sector, 6,000 when Petrotrin was shut down. All lost their jobs. 400 at UTT, 114 at TIDCO, 1,500 at TSTT. And then in the private sector, as the government did nothing to stop the companies from closing, 600 at ArcelorMittal, hundreds more at Unilever. And this is just some of those who lost their jobs. Wages haven't gone up. Thousands of workers haven't had a wage increase in 10 years. Nurses, UE and UTT workers, postal workers, port and daily paid workers, public servants, and many more. Those who did got the meager increase of 4% over a 6-year period, and even that was shoved down their throats as the government told them, take it or leave it. Pensions haven't gone up, so that tens of thousands of our senior citizens have to count every penny as they pick and choose what bill to pay or what to buy in the grocery. The prices of everything, food, gas, transport, medicines, other personal care items, rent, have increased tremendously. The majority of workers can't make it from payday to payday. Some bill doesn't get paid. Some basic needs for the children can't be provided. Sometimes there just isn't money to put food on the table. Young people can't afford to buy a home, as house and apartment prices start off at a rate where they don't qualify for a mortgage, or if they're on a short-term contract employment, the banks won't lend them. As a result, they can't lay down roots in Trinidad and Tobago. They don't see the possibility of raising a family here, and so they look to other countries for their future life. We will pay a heavy price later on by losing so many of our talented, well-trained youth. On the trade union front, there's union busting to weaken labor's ability to challenge government policies, especially of the strong trade unions in key sectors such as OWTU, closure of Petrotrin, CW, retrenchment at TSCT, PSA, ending of BIR and customs, threats to jobs at the port, Seamen and Waterfront, WASA, PSA and NUGE, and NP, OWTU. Injustice at the industrial court exists as the government refuses to replace the chairman of the Essential Services Division, who also chairs the special tribunal. This individual has been slapped down by the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago, our appeal court, and the Privy Council for issuing very flawed decisions and judgments which cause many groups of workers to be wrongfully treated. There's a violation of the collective bargaining process, which is one of the cornerstones of the International Labour Organization's agenda. When the Minister of Finance announces a wage increase for government employees, and then the CPO has just 1 or 2 meetings with a trade union and tells them, take this or leave it, that's not collective bargaining, that's not negotiating, that's bullying. And there's not been a single bill to reform badly outdated labour legislations brought to the Parliament in 10 years. Plenty consultations, endless talk, but no action. Modern labour legislation was not a priority because it would have benefited workers. In the area of governance, there were failed promises to bring about constitution reform. The National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform was appointed and submitted a report. The government told the country there would be a national consultation on the report. It never happened. Instead, the PNM held a convention and the PM announced the change in the coat of arms. That's all. There was the failed commitments to pass party and campaign finance law. The PM himself presented the bill on this issue in the Parliament in May 2020 and spoke forcefully about the importance of passing it into law. 5 years later, nothing done. There were the failed processes of consultation and bringing people into decision making, such as what happened with the National Tripartite Advisory Council, which collapsed because while discussions were taking place, the government, in a violation of the spirit and intent of the NTAC, went ahead and closed down a state body and retrenched all of the workers. But neoliberal policies are not only about how unfairly wealth and income is distributed. It's also about social exclusion, where the society is being split up more and more into classes, with the elite class enjoying a great lifestyle and having all the opportunities to advance, while the working class gets pushed down more and more into a cycle of hopelessness. This reality is not new, as governments past and present failed to implement recommendations of the many committees and reports that had studied the problem. But we must say, without fear of contradiction, that the Rowley-led government set about to restructure the society. We now have a very tiny elite of super wealthy, a small group who are doing very well, a middle-income group that is large but has been shrinking with job losses and who are finding that their standard of living is going down. Then there's a very large number of people who are struggling to keep their heads above water, and another very large number of citizens who don't have a decent life. This restructuring of the society is leading to hopelessness by many, crime for some, and will eventually lead the society into chaos. Some examples of how social exclusion prevents people from at-risk communities accessing opportunities are, for example, discrimination in accessing jobs, because if you come from certain communities and list your home address, you could get blanked. Many people in some communities feel neglected and disrespected by those in office because there are different strokes for different folks. There's an education system that benefits the elites. The failure rates at SCA and CSEC exams are highest in the communities located in communities that are at risk. And this discrimination and exclusion is even taking place in the carnival, as the working class who created the carnival arts, our kaiso, mas, and pan, are now being marginalized. Look at what happens on Carnival Day. See who is holding the ropes for the mass bands and see who is playing the mass. All are we is not one. The inequality is also experienced in the conditions in which our citizens live. Some have water 24/7. Others get water once every 14 days if they're lucky. Some have nice wide roads. Others don't. Some get their garbage collected 3 times a week. Others suffer as garbage piles up on the corner for weeks. Some don't have to worry about how they will get to work, back home, to school, or to the grocery. Others have to wait for hours for public transportation and often have to walk from the main road to their homes late at night or early in the morning. You see, the community environment is important to enable citizens to feel that they too are people and are equally important as the rich and powerful. The government failed in its use of state power to bring about positive change when they had the chance. Thus, instead of properly restructuring Petrotrin so that we would still have a refinery in operation, and with that more economic activity and fuel security, they closed it down, and that was an economic crime. The country lost opportunities for economic diversification and a national mobilization for reconstruction by firstly, the frustration of the Economic Development Advisory Board, and then the failure to implement the roadmap for recovery post-COVID. And of course, there's crime, a failed criminal justice system, and near collapse in other areas of the protective services, prisons, and fire. But there's also the arrogance of power. There's so many examples, but we'll just mention a few. The Prime Minister saw absolutely no problem taking a huge pay and pension increase, because he gets 100% of his pay as pension, while telling public servants, take 4%. The Minister of Finance laughingly told us that he had raised the price of gas not once, not twice, not 3 times, and they ain't riot yet. The PM's style of attacking everyone who was critical of the government, including well-respected professionals who have given national service. And there's a lack of understanding, care, or concern for how others are living when an MP said in Parliament, if you can't afford it, then use a coal pot or ride a bicycle. For all these reasons, the PNM should not get another term. They just don't deserve it. The old saying, one good turn deserves another. Well, the PNM has not done we the people a good turn. But they got a second term and blew that chance that the people gave them. Our lives are worse, not better. Every party must know that they do not have a divine right to rule. This is not PNM country. It belongs to every citizen, born and unborn. And it doesn't belong to the elite, the wealthy, and those who believe that because of their status, they own this town. This country does not belong to so-called leaders who see the rest of society as those who don't count, except at election time when their votes suddenly become important. This is our analysis. We believe that it is not only true, but is a view supported by very many citizens. Some people, and not just our members and supporters, have expressed disappointment that the MSJ isn't contesting these elections, as that would have offered them a real alternative. Others have been asking us for advice. What should we do? Should we vote? And if so, for whom? This is our very considered advice. The PNM says this is a new chapter. However, it really is another chapter in the same old book. As the Kaisonian sang many years ago, we just can't go on this way. The majority of people cannot continue with a story where daily life is a terrible struggle just to survive. The country needs to close the book on the arrogance of power and the use of state power to benefit the elites at the expense of the working people. We therefore advise that you should not vote for a continuation of this bad story. Do not vote for the PNM. Who should you vote for? We leave this for you to decide who you truly think will best serve your interests. You may wish to give your vote to the candidate who will faithfully represent you as a member of parliament. This is consistent with what an MP is, first and foremost, supposed to do: sit in the House of Representatives to properly represent you, the constituents, and pursue your interests, and not the party first, as has become the political culture. In this regard, we can vouch for two candidates who have a track record of service: Clyde Elder in Labre and Ernesto Kiza in Point Fortin. Finally, we do have this advice, not for you, the citizens who will be voting on April 28th, but for the persons who you elect, and especially for those who will form the government on April 29th. 1. You must not continue the story of neoliberal policies. This means, therefore, no privatization or divestment of key social services, strategic state enterprises, and the commanding heights of the economy. It means there must be a halt in the loss of jobs and retrenchment, and an end to the odious system of short-term contract labor. It means there must be the implementation of measures that ensure that the burdens of adjustment that have been placed primarily on the backs of working people and the poor are not just eased by short-term fixes, but that fairness and equity are applied. This means that any other adjustments that may be necessary due to the country's economic challenges must be borne by those who can afford to bear them. Who have more corn must feed more fowl. It means a clear strategy to close the wealth and income inequality gap by raising the incomes and opportunities to earn wealth by those who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. This redistribution of wealth and income must be based on policies that are sustainable. This means that there must be actions to lead to food security. Agriculture must be prioritized with our farmers earning a decent income. There must be serious implementation of an action plan to diversify the economy, utilizing all of our human and physical assets in areas such as tourism and the creative sectors. 2, and this, remember, is our advice to those who get elected. You must introduce progressive reforms to bring about change in the country's governance. Specifically, there must be a serious effort to bring about constitutional reform before the end of your 5-year term. There must be the passage of party and campaign finance law before the next election cycle of local or THA elections. The country requires measures to deal with white-collar crime and corruption, which are one of the root causes of our violent crime crisis. There must be progressive reforms to labor laws. It's time for action on this issue. The criminal justice system has to be reformed. Justice delayed is justice denied, and there must be a level playing field. There cannot be justice for those who can afford it, while others pay a price for not having the money to be properly represented. Then, all the studies that have pointed to the education system as being one of the roots of our social crisis means that major education reform is required so that every child has a real chance of fulfilling his or her human potential and thus being able to live a decent life. Climate change is real and is a threat to us in many ways. There's a lot of talk about a transition away from fossil fuels, but we insist that this must be a just transition, one that takes into account our economic realities, the real options for renewables, that we don't continue to be dependent on the multinationals to supply our energy needs, that we don't continue to be dependent on the multinationals to supply our energy needs as we switch from fossil fuels to renewables. And we have to take into consideration the situation of workers in the energy sector. And we need to place the cost of the transition on the energy companies. Critically, defending our national sovereignty and our right to self-determination as an independent republic must be a principle adhered to in our foreign policy. TNT must not fall prey to the aggressive colonial and imperial agenda of the powerful nations of the global north. We must not curry favor with them in the false hope that they will return the favor. Given the new global dynamic, we must strengthen regional integration, CARICOM, and the wider Caribbean, while at the same time, together with CARICOM, forge stronger economic and trade relations with the BRICS countries and others in the global south, Latin America and Africa. Fellow citizens, we urge everyone and all parties to campaign vigorously but peacefully. Let us be respectful of each other as we all have to live here after April 28th. And we urge parties not to engage in statements or actions that can inflame passions or create the conditions for a post-election scenario that leads to a political crisis and chaos. We end now where we started. The country needs fundamental change. That is what the MSJ is committed to. After the elections, we will intensify our work to build our party and our efforts to develop an informed and cultivated and alert public opinion, which would lead to the revolution of the mind that will open the door to the MSJ seriously challenging for government so that state power can finally be used to bring about fundamental change and a better living for all. Thank you very much.